Welcome to the Story A Day podcast. This is Julie Duffy from storyaday.org, encouraging you to be a writer every day, not someday.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Julie here from Story A Day. And this week, here we are at the middle of the year. Somebody just mentioned this to me. I don't know why I never thought of it before, but they said they love July 1st because it feels like another fresh start. It's the beginning of the second half of the year. I don't know, maybe because when I went to school never ended until about the 30th of June. So I think I was always a little too distracted in July to think of it as an opportunity for anything other than running screaming into the hills and the woods and having a good time with my friends. And I never really got that idea that July is the beginning of the second half of the year. But I am here to invite you today to reconsider July the 1st, or whenever you're listening to this, as an opportunity to have a second new year, a second fresh start. I mean, every day is that, obviously, but if we want to think about goal setting and things like that, it can be helpful to have a date to start. So July seems like a great start. So my question to you, if you started this year with great expectations about what you were going to achieve this year, and you maybe haven't met them all, what are you going to do right now to let some of that stuff go and reconsider that some of those goals that you set at the beginning of the year just weren't that interesting to you anymore? Some of them are things that you were holding on to, an older version of you maybe was holding on to. And is it okay to let them go now? Another thing I'm going to invite you to consider is what you would like to do with the rest of this year. It's all arbitrary, you know. Our measurement of time is relatively arbitrary. I mean, sure, there's the moon and there's some, you know, astronomical things that we could pay attention to, but it's helpful sometimes to have a calendar. That's the only reason that we use it. So my question is, what stories would you like to tell in the next 6 months of this year? And the reason I ask this is because I often talk to people, and when they set goals that are things that they don't control. I want to get published. I want to make money from my writing. I want to be read. The only things that we control are getting to the desk, putting the words on the page, and making them as good as we can. Yes, if you want those other things, those external results, then there are steps you can take to make them more likely. But the thing you really control is the part where you're putting the words on the page. So, what stories are inside you that you've never told? What stories would make a difference if you told them, regardless of how many other people read them? You might have stories in you that you want to write just so that your siblings know the truth, just so that your child knows you a little better, just so that the memory of the influential grown-up in your life is honoured. You can write those stories as memoir, or you can take those people and turn them into characters and put them into the kind of fiction that you love to write, the kind of fiction that you love to read. Other things for you to think about. What makes you angry right now? If you're not writing stories, it might be because you're afraid of your emotions. And I'm not saying that writing them is going to be easy or comfortable, but I think it's healthy. If you can take an issue that you're really mad about, that you want to change the world about, and put that into a story and get readers to feel emotions about those characters, you have a much better chance of actually impacting somebody than if you just write a screed on your blog or on Facebook with a factually accurate case that would win you the prize at the debate club, and nobody cares. You have a skill with your wordsmithery that allows you to create compelling situations, compelling characters, vivid experiences that readers can go through in a safe and vicarious way, but that still makes their brain feel like they have experienced it. So if there is an issue that is making you angry right now, consider putting it in a story. Doesn't mean that you have to write an angry story. Doesn't mean that you have to write a revenge fantasy story, although you're welcome to. You can write a beautiful story about how the world should be, how the world will be if enough of us get together and paint that picture. You could write a funny story which catches people off guard and makes them sympathetic towards a character they might not be sympathetic towards if they just saw them in a news headline. You could write a satire that skewers the people who are, in your esteemed opinion, idiots and not seeing the truth. There are so many ways that you could address the things that you're feeling, and the only person who experiences these issues the way you do is you, but there are lots of people out there who would recognise parts of the story the way you tell it. There are people out there who haven't got the language they need to explain why they feel the way they feel about an issue. And sometimes they find it in stories. And sometimes those stories are on TV, and sometimes those stories are in movies, but people still do read. A lot of people still read, and movie producers read. And so if you write your story and share it with one person, you could be making the world a better place. And if it takes off and is shared with several million, you don't know what kind of impact that's going to have. And it doesn't need to be just angry stories. It might be stuff that you're angry about at the moment. There also might be stuff that you're delighted about at the moment. And I would encourage you to write those stories too. Yeah, maybe the world doesn't strictly need another story about how wonderful it is to have a new grandchild or a new baby, but maybe it does, because maybe nobody has reached down and told the really difficult, honest, funny, hilarious, ridiculous truth about a new baby coming into the world the way that you could. And maybe somebody else will see that story and just feel a little less alone. Maybe you want to write a story about your big sister, or your younger brother, or the uncle you never met. How could you tell that story in a way that would move people? Because when people read stories, they're looking for connection. And again, I quite often find with short stories, and I know I'm not alone in this, a lot of short stories that get published are serious and important and kind of depressing and bleak. And those can't be the only stories out there in the world representing this wonderful form that you and I both love. Short stories are easy to consume, and we need more of them. But we need more of them that are accessible and beautiful and important and all that stuff, but written in an entertaining way, written in a way that conveys a truth that is enjoyable to read. It doesn't necessarily have to be depressing or about a massive important issue. If you're holding back from writing because you don't have anything important enough to write about, please stop. We need to see ourselves in stories. You think if we're sitting around a campfire and someone says, tell a story, it's only going to be stories about world-changing events or trauma or things like that people want to hear? No, they want to hear silly stories. They want to hear touching stories. They want to hear real-world stories. So here I am today with a plea for you to write stories that maybe originate in things that you are feeling. Frustration with the fact that you're the only one that ever does the dishes in your house. That could be a story. I would read that story. Maybe you want to write about going out into the backyard and what you find underneath a 4-leaf clover. That would be a lovely story to read. As long as there is some emotion that you can hook me with, and as long as there is some grain of truth and universality, which comes from being human. And not all human stories are about trauma or world-changing events. The everyday is a wonderful place to start with story writing. Now, if you're worried about getting published, can I just tell you, you're putting the cart before the horse. You don't need to worry about that. You may want to be published, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you don't particularly want to be a professional writer, and you just want to play around, tell some stories, have some fun, express yourself, become a better communicator, then please consider writing a story this week.
If you want to learn to write, don't read another book or article. Start writing. I'm here to invite you to consider the Story a Day 3-Day Challenge. It's a challenge and a workshop that gets people writing and completing stories in just 3 days. And it works. I'm fanatical about getting more and more diverse stories into the world, and I think yours should be among them. If you're feeling the pull to write or level up your storytelling, let me hold your hand through 3 days of short story writing. Check out the 3-Day Challenge at storyaday.org/3DC. Thanks for listening. Why not come over to the blog at storyaday.org and check out this week's writing prompts and articles. And in the meantime, have a great creative week, and of course, keep writing.